From when they are young, parents and television teach children that prison is a terrible place to end up in, and that it is an abyss full of bad people. Although this is true to an extent, it has created the feeling in children and teens that prisoners are irredeemable villains who should never get a chance at redemption. As teenagers grow older into adulthood, they realize there is a blurred line between good and evil. They realize no one is inherently good, that although someone can do good actions, it does not make them a good person. Similarly, one who commits evil deeds is not immediately an evil or bad person. The idea of this created Shawshank Redemption, the movie portraying the virtuous, the righteous, the sinister, and the villainous in prison from both those who live in and guard the prison. Watching Shawshank Redemption has changed me as a person. It has changed how I see prisoners, how I see hardship, and how I see faith. Shawshank Redemption proves that prison is a place where change and rehabilitation is possible, however, not in the ways that were intended. In fact, it does the opposite. It shows justice being given through dirty actions, proving that although something may be illegal, it is not inherently an evil action. Although Shawshank Redemption doesn't necessarily describe anything as evil, it proves to the audience that the people they should be wary of were not prisoners. There were a few prisoners that were clearly evil, such as Boggs, but most of the evil in the movie comes from Samuel Norton, the warden, and Byron Hadley, the head guard. The movie proves its point of evil by making the people who should be seen as saviors or rehabilitators as true evil in the prison. The director of the movie and author of the book deliberately chose to make the antagonist of the story who they were because it makes the audience feel for not just the main characters, but for every inmate in the prison who has to endure the injustice of the justice system. When Warden Norton is first introduced in the movie, he is initially seen as a tough but fair overseer of the prison, intending to instill good habits onto the inmates through religion. This is, however, subverted when someone talks out of line and he sends Captain Hadley to beat the man to the ground, clearly in approval of the harsh taxes used by one guard. In turn, this sets up the rest of the movie for the warden's character and personality. He is stern and depraved, although he prefers not to be the one who gets his hands dirty. This is as well showcases Captain Hadley's evil nature through the lack of care for the inmates in the prison. On the other hand, the main cast of prisoners in Shawshank Redemption perfectly embody prisoners as not evil but misunderstood. They give the audience a chance to look through their eyes and see what it's like to be seen as the lowest of the low with no chance at redemption. The best portrayal of this is Andy Dufresne, a man who was wrongly convicted as a murderer and was put to prison for 2 life sentences. Although Andy is seen to the world of Shawshank Redemption as dirt and scum, to the audience, he is a misunderstood man who tries to make the most of the poor situation he is put in. When he enters prison, Andy is almost a blank slate to the other inmates, just as he is to the audience, but his true character is shown when the group of inmates were tarring a roof of a house. When he overhears Captain Hadley talking about money issues he has been having, Andy risks his life to walk over to the guard and give him advice and help for his problems. He says he would help, as long as in return the inmates tarring the roof would get 3 beers each. In this one scene, the audience sees Andy's kindness in helping out the guard who has done nothing but beat up inmates since he has gotten there, and his thought for the other inmates on the roof to get them beers, even when he had said that he had given up drinking. Although he is an inmate in prison, the movie shows that this does not make Andy a bad person, and gives the audience a chance to understand him and empathize with him. Another prisoner that the movie shows as a misunderstood evil is Brooks Hatlin, a man who had been in Shawshank for 50 years and who was initially portrayed as an old man who ran the library in the prison, passing out books to cells and sometimes delivering contraband to other inmates. When he is let out of prison after his sentence is ended, he feels lost and out of place. After being in prison for 50 years, he didn't know anything about the outside world and didn't know how to fit in. The movie plays a letter written by Brooks in the background as his life in the outside world is shown. This, however, is not a happy story, ending with the death of Brooks by his own means due to him not being able to live in the outside world. This gives the audience another way to understand the prisoners. Although people are sent to prison with long sentences, when people reform in prison when they have a long sentence, it doesn't become an easy transition living outside of prison. Shawshank Redemption shows the difference between evil and misunderstood to the audience, and shows that the general thoughts about prisoners are not exactly true, and that instead the evil in prison are the exact opposite of who would be expected to be the evil. The movie gave every viewer and audience member a new view of what prison is and what it really does, and lets everyone look through a lens of a prisoner to see what they go through, and to see what prisoners aren't too different from the average person. Shawshank Redemption will forever go down as a classic, with timeless themes that will change people for all of time. It expresses empathy for criminals and humanizes those who are structurally meant to be dehumanized. Instead of encouraging pity for tragedy, it instead invites understanding for survival, and gives the audience a chance to see the good in criminals. It gives a chance to enjoy a judgment for evil and fortune for vigilance. It conveys to the audience that the prisoners aren't the only evil in prison, and reveals the fraud and brutality used in the detention system. His judgment cometh, and that right soon, is the line shown by the end of the movie that perfectly encompasses the moral standings of the movie. Although prison is full of people who did wrong, it doesn't inherently make them bad people, which is why the judgment came to those who truly deserved it in the end.